and members of the Commission, thank you for providing me with the opportunity and privilege of testifying today. The importance of this undertaking cannot be underestimated. September 11, 2001 is one of the most significant days in our nation's history. The show of humanity here, across the country, and around the world on 9/11, and in the days, weeks, and months that followed, was extraordinary. On September 11th, the world witnessed selfless sacrifice at a level unprecedented. In my 34 years in public safety, I have seen bravery, courage, and sacrifice. But what I saw on 9/11 was without equal. On that day, firefighters, police officers, EMTs, court officers, and ordinary citizens, people we may never know, refused to abandon their fellow in the face of certain injury and ultimately lost their lives with those they were trying to save. OEM has been in existence in the office of the mayor since 1996, when Mayor Giuliani recognized the need to enhance interagency coordination in planning, preparing, and responding to emergency situations, and he created that mayoral agency. OEM was comprised of personnel drawn from various city agencies, including the police, fire departments, health department, environmental protection departments, and others. OEM's responsibilities include coordinating and assisting in emergency response, monitoring the city for emergency conditions and incidents, and operating the Emergency Operations Center, from where the city was able to manage large or unique multi-agency events. A crucial part of OEM's mandate was to develop interagency emergency response plans and organize joint training exercises among city agencies under those plans. Coordinated response plans were created with the assistance and the input from each of the participating agencies regarding various types of incidents ranging from coastal storm planning to biological terrorist attacks. We conducted numerous drills and tabletop exercises to test those plans, and we modified them as needed. In addition to all the drills, OEM, the police department, fire department, and other agencies in the city responded to emergencies on a daily basis. Even though we could not have planned exactly for the events of September 11th, the emergency response plans we had in place and our extensive training and experience helped prepare us for that day. On the morning of September 11th, I was at City Hall when I received a telephone call from the OEM Watch Command informing me that a plane had crashed into the North Tower of the World Trade Center. The Watch Command acted as the eyes and ears of the city. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it monitored all emergency service frequencies, New York State and national alert systems, weather systems, and local, national, and international news. In the event of an incident or a situation that may affect New York City, they would dispatch appropriate OEM responders and notify the senior staff. After I received the call from Watch Command, I stepped outside onto the portico of City Hall, and I could see the black smoke rising, the gaping hole, and the burning tower. I knew at that moment this was not a small plane, that there would be terrible losses, that this was the worst disaster I had faced in my 34 years, and that this would be one of the biggest fire and rescue operations the city had ever put in place. I headed toward the North Tower right away and entered the World Trade Center complex through the concourse level below the buildings. People were already evacuating. Everyone was calm and orderly, and there was no panic. I was struck by the contrast from the evacuation after the 1993 bombing of the Trade Center. In '93, there was chaos and confusion as people left the building. From the concourse, I proceeded to the lobby of the North Tower, where the initial fire command post was located. OEM First Director John Odermatt and many other OEM senior staff were at that fire command post, assisting in the operation. Upon my arrival in the tower lobby, I reconfirmed with my deputies that the EOC had been activated. Activating that EOC involved notifying the appropriate city agencies, requesting them to send their representatives, and for an emergency of this scale, it also included all areas of city government, along with the state, federal, and voluntary service sectors. Every organization that had a stake in our city would probably be involved. The OEM command vehicle was ordered to the scene to provide the on-site OEM command center. In the North Tower, OEM was monitoring interagency operations at the lobby of command post. The purpose of OEM in an emergency of this magnitude is to assist the incident commander, to help coordinate with the various other agencies, to provide information, and to supply additional resources as needed. OEM is rarely the incident commander, but rather provides vital support and assistance to the agency leading the emergency operation and to the other agencies involved. An example of OEM's role on 9/11 was when EMS began setting up a triage area for the injured in the north lobby of the tower. Working with EMS, we determined that we should move that triage area from the North Tower lobby into the lobby of 7 World Trade Center, the building OEM was located in, directly across the street. It was important to keep the tower lobby clear for fire and rescue operations and for civilian evacuation, and at the same time to locate the triage where it would be most accessible for ambulances to respond in and out. The operation in the North Tower was professional, controlled, and organized. While it was a horrific event, at this point it was still primarily a high-rise fire situation. The fire department was clearly in command of the firefighting, rescue, and building evacuation. The police department was directing the evacuation of civilians from the World Trade Center area, securing both the perimeter of the World Trade Center and the rest of the city. And in addition to the evacuation of the World Trade Center complex itself, the police department had begun evacuating the tens of thousands of people working in surrounding buildings and living in the area. When I subsequently viewed photos of the mass departure across the Hudson River to New Jersey, it truly looked like the evacuation of Dunkirk. When the second plane hit the South Tower, we felt an explosion in the North Tower, but at first we did not know what it was. I was immediately notified over the radio by the EOC what had happened. Almost instantly after the South Tower had been hit, I had the OEM request air support from the State Emergency Management Agency for Air National Guard and through the Pentagon, who we have worked closely with. It was at that time that the EOC informed me there were still planes unaccounted for and that additional planes may be heading for New York. I relayed that information immediately to the fire incident commanders in the lobby of number 1. At the same time, OEM evacuated the EOC. The rest of 7 World Trade Center had been evacuated earlier, but after a report of a possible third plane, we had to get our people out of that building. I had recently then joined the mayor, police commissioner, and members of the mayor's senior staff out of the North Tower in the temporary police headquarters at 75 Barclay Street. It was while we were at that location that the North Tower collapsed, and I could hardly imagine the thousands of people we had lost. We left Barclay Street and walked north. As we walked, the North Tower collapsed. There was almost no words to describe the feeling at that moment. What had happened, what had been the largest rescue operation in history, was forced to multiply. There were 2 massive building collapses, raging fires under the wreckage in both the towers and in surrounding buildings, and potentially thousands of people missing, injured, or dead. We heard planes overhead. I looked up and realized and said, they're ours. There were naval jets coming, turned out from Oceano Naval Station. It was the first American military presence we saw, and it gave us a sense of reassurance as we continued evacuating. We stopped at the firehouse on 6th Avenue and Houston Street to regroup and organize our steps. It was decided that the police academy would be the best location for a temporary command center. At the academy, the mayor and his staff organized the temporary seat of government, and with the police department, OEM created a temporary emergency operations center, taking their library and creating an EOC for 30-plus agencies with computers, hard wires, accommodations for those agencies, including special space for SEMO, the State Emergency Manager Office, and FEMA. One of OEM's responsibilities is always to be thinking of what will be needed next. At this point, we were already working in conjunction with other agencies on the logistics of the rescue operation. We were ordering supplies and equipment for the rescue effort. We ordered air quality testing of the site for a number of reasons. We started to develop plans on how to move and where to locate the debris.
Time to sum up, Mr. Sheirer.
Steel for the site. We requested disaster medical assistant teams and disaster mortuary teams from the federal government. There has been much said about coordination and communication between the departments. Before I became director of OEM, I had worked at both the fire department and the police department. I am aware, perhaps more so than many, on the many times that interagency rivalries can be problematic or positive.